David Whiting is here, as he is every Tuesday, your talkback lawyer, to give you some free legal advice. Caveat emptor, it's free. It might not be. It might not be worth much.
It might be worth every penny.
It might be. Yeah. It's worth. Well, you're paying. They're all paying, David. You, me.
How much do we pay for the ABC?
I can't work it out anymore. I've lost that number.
Okay.
No, it's a bit more than 8 cents, I think.
Do you know in the UK it's £147 for a TV licence?
That's right. Didn't Gough Whitlam get rid of the TV licence here?
I'm not sure.
I think it was Gough Whitlam because it was seen as regressive taxation. And so
Right.
as a result, the BBC is funded by orders of magnitude more than us. I think it's about 8 to 1 on a per capita basis. They get eight times the amount of funding per head of population than we do. And the reason is the TV licence fee.
But £147 is a lot.
It's a ton of money.
It was $300 or something.
A lot of money, especially when you think about our conversation about electricity prices and power bills. So, and you've got to get it every year, and they still drive around. Although I think it's probably less of an issue now because you can stream it. They still drive around with those vans, and they correlate. They can sense the antennas receiving the TV signal. I don't know if they just measure the antennas or they can actually...
They used to look at the antennas. Who knows what they do now.
And that they correlate that with whether or not you've paid. Anyway, that's all beside the point. Homework from last week. Firstly, David in Kew had a sewer pipe question.
David bought a block of land from the predecessor of the man who owned the property next door, and there was a sewer pipe that had been... The neighbour's sewer pipe was in David's block of land. What did he do about it? And we're talking about rights by adverse possession. And there is lots of authority that says you can't have adverse possession for eaves. So it can't be airspace. You know, if you and I live next door to each other and your gutter's extended into my property, that's your problem. That's not my problem. But all of the work I've done would indicate that you can, in fact, claim adverse possession for a sewer pipe.
You can.
But you'd really have to wonder because you have no access to the sewer pipe other than through the ends. So it's not like I have an easement that's 3 feet wide that contains a sewer pipe. I've got this cylinder that runs through your property, and in respect of that cylinder and what's in it, I have adverse possession.
So is there any legal advantage or a financial advantage on repairs? No.
Well, you get no access to the right of repairs, and if what's in your sewer pipe escapes into my property, I can sue you. So, and the other difficulty, of course, is that in order to claim by adverse possession, you've got to be able to measure it. And
can you get a plumber to measure it?
Well, you could, but the surveyor's got to say where it starts and finishes and if it wanders and all the rest of it. So I'd rather be on David's side. But where I come to it would be in the cost of $1 million building, which I'm assuming is what the cost of the property is. It would in fact make all the sense in the world to simply shift it to the neighbour's property with the neighbour's agreement, even if you paid for it. It's just one less problem. Now, the other one that we talked about was Richard from down in the Latrobe Valley, Richard from Warragul. And he had a daughter who had turned from... she used to get... she didn't have a Eastlink toll, which meant that nothing beeped in her car, but they took money and she used it twice a day. I do have a device that beeps in the car, and every now and then it beeps more than it should, so I have to go and fix that. But in her particular case... because she wasn't watching whether the money was coming out of her bank account or not, she's now at the point where I think it was $30,000 or $40,000 in fines. And at 90 days, that's what happens. They become automatic infringements. But last week you spoke to a lady from RMIT who had developed...
The Fine Fixer.
The Fine Fixer.
Website and app, I think.
Yeah, great. So Fine Fixer, I'll call it a joint venture between Legal Aid and RMIT.
One of the community legal centres, I think.
Yeah,
yes.
And so the end result was, if you've got a fine problem and you've got a toll problem, Fine Fixer.
Makes a difference. It'll give you at least the beginnings of an answer. Fines, perhaps of a different type. Cage is in Warrandyte. Go for it, Cage. Ooh. Go for it.
I enjoy the segment.
Thank you.
Yeah, I've been scratching my head over this one for a while. I'm a bus driver. I drive a charter bus, and I received a fine for parking in a bus zone. Now the bus zone was not a bus stop. They often are, but this wasn't. And and by and large, all bus drivers use these bus zones for our work. So I received a fine from a council, and
because you're a charter, not a public transport. Is that the reason?
That's right. Yeah, it wasn't a route service, a scheduled bus run.
Yes.
But I was, bringing people from one place to another.
Yes.
And so I received this fine. And I wrote a letter, and they basically wrote back and said, because you're not a route service bus, then
you pay the fine. So where's the issue, Cage?
Well, the issue is that there's a bus zone outside of every school that is not for a scheduled service bus. There's bus zones all over the state that are designated for buses to stop in, and it's charter buses that stop in there. So I had no reason to believe
that it was any different. Look, Cage, I'll have a look at the road rules. I accept your point that there are lots of, although I must say there are a large number of buses that stop at schools as a variation from their standard route. So in that sense, they are in fact public transport buses with a variation to their 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock route.
That's true, but they're not on a PTV route. But so I think that in a way.
But you drive a private bus, Cage. Do you? And you say the bus zones are everywhere. I'm presuming they're for public buses, not private buses. Do you? I mean, you must have some experience with it in the past.
Oh, absolutely. And my experience is that we use the bus zones. The bus zones are there in a multitude of places for setting down, safely setting down passengers and picking them up.
But for private buses as well?
Well, that's the problem. So I've looked up the road rules, and it does designate public buses.
Right.
However, there seems to be, it's a bit ambiguous because outside every recreation centre, there's a bus zone, but no route service will stop there.
Then Cage, they've just rewritten the road rules. You're probably 6 months too late because the new road rules came out on the 1st of July. But so what you might do is write to the Minister for Justice and Regulation, and you might suggest that there ought to be 2 classes or 3 classes of bus zones, one for both, one for route buses and one for charter buses.
And we'll see, Cage. We'll do a bit of homework on that as well. Bill's in Diamond Creek with a tree question. Go for it, Bill.
Yeah, thanks for the great show, guys. Really, really interesting and worthwhile. I've been looking at the laws in relation to clearing land from the houses with the oncoming fire season, and I've been looking at the 1020 and the 1050 rule.
Yes.
And with the 10, there's 10 metres where you can knock down everything. And then when you get out to the 20s and 50s, they say you can knock down everything that isn't a tree.
Yes.
Well, my question is, when does a seed become a seedling, and a seedling become a sapling, and a sapling become a tree?
Well, I would have said they were all trees. It's just a question. I think the difference between a shrub and a tree is the height to which you ultimately expect it to grow. Now, I accept your point that at some point it's not yet a tree. Otherwise, 3 weeks after it's seeded, you can't remove it. I'm not aware of a regulation as to what defines a tree. I would have thought maybe 1.5 meters, something like that, but that's just no more than a guess.
Normally, in construction, if you're felling trees for construction purposes, it's taken as a certain diameter above.
There are certainly. I had cause to look at the local laws around Paran for a friend, and there were issues there about requiring permits for trees of a particular diameter. So perhaps what are your Nillumbik at Diamond Creek?
That's unfortunately yes.
Well, I would start by looking at their local laws and seeing how they define a tree that you need a permit to cut.
They can't give me that answer.
Is there nothing in their local laws?
I've looked in their local laws and I can't find anything.
Well, have a look at the shires and cities that surround you and see if there's a guide there.
Yeah, one thing I did find was a 12,000-word treatise by a judge on the definition of a tree.
Yes, right. And of course, and with only 12,000 words, it wouldn't have offered any guidance at all. Wouldn't be nearly long enough, would it?
No.
Nothing there. Oh, that's fantastic. I'm glad you found it, though. You should stick that online and publish it.
Crown copyright, Raph.
Oh, you can't?
Crown copyright.
You can't stick it up online? Surely you must be able to put a judgment up online and say, hey, look at this.
You could refer people to a judgment,
Yes.
but I don't know that you could actually duplicate it and put it on your website.
You can't duplicate it.
No, it's
Isn't
not
it a public document?
Well, it's still Crown copyright. I mean, there's an amazing
Don't
discussion.
the judges get a couple of $100 at the end of every year for their reprint of their judgments in legal textbooks?
I don't know that they reprint that many of them.
Journalists used to get that sort of payment. Pat is in Ballarat. Go for it, Pat. What's your query?
Thanks for taking my call. Friday I got shifted from Geelong to Ballarat and I was given a firm quote of $800 and an hour before the people left, the boss said, you've got to pay us another $125 for our overtime. They said they had to wait an hour while they got the key. Is that legal or illegal?
There's a really weird concept about what a quote is. Now, a quote is not of itself a guarantee that the work will be completed for the value, but rather it's an estimate of what it would cost you. So, in a sense, firm and quote are not words that fit together. I could give you an agreement that I'll do this work for you for $100, in which case, if you give me the job, we have an agreement as to the price. But I think it'll be $100 is of itself not a quote. Your problem, though, is that there was no allowance in what you're talking about for the hour they had to wait for the key. Who's responsible for that delay?
The estate agent or the solicitors conveyancing people.
So what happens is that you move house, and what time was settlement?
3 o'clock.
And what time did you get the key?
4 o'clock.
And what does well, normally it's the solicitor or conveyancer for the vendor who tells the agent that it's appropriate to release the key. Was that the problem?
That was the problem, yep.
Yeah, I can see. I don't know that there's an obligation to notify them in a particular time frame. Why not talk to the solicitor and ask when they notified? But I honestly think that as between you and the removalist, it's your problem. And for $100, I don't really know that I'd be taking anybody on.
Fair enough.
All right.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Sorry, Pat.
Good luck, Pat. Paul is in Caulfield. Go for it, Paul.
Oh, thank you, David. Look, my son, at fairly short notice, flew with his family to Queensland for a holiday. While they were away, their car registration became due and was overlooked.
Yes.
My wife drove their car to collect them from the airport at the end of their holiday because her car's not large enough for them. She was picked up on Tullamarine Freeway and has now received an infringement notice for using unregistered car, $795.
Yeah, it's not cheap, is it?
Does she have any grounds
to
contest that?
No. The vehicle was unregistered.
Yeah.
I mean, it's one of the frustrations.
They paid it immediately when they returned. It was on their fridge and they just overlooked it.
Yes, but there's no backdating of the registration. That's when it... yes...
The renewal started from the date it was due, I noticed on the
I accept that. That way they get a little bit more money. Well, the other option would be you could start again and go and get a roadworthy, which would cost you more than the extra.
Oh, yes, I know.
There is no excuse for that. It's happened to my family as well.
Right, so there's nothing she can't, by writing in, she won't achieve anything. By pointing out the situation
the issue is that on one view... Yep. It's up to her to be satisfied that the vehicle is registered when she gets in it.
Oh, yes, we realise all that now. But the police officer said it was only 5 days overdue and she may have grounds of appeal.
Well, you could certainly write to them and say, look, It was 5 days overdue and it only happened because my son was away and all those sorts of things.
Yes.
You may get a sympathetic hearing and you may not.
Yeah.
But for the cost of the stamp, go for it.
Yeah, so it's worth it.
Yes.
Worth a try.
Yep.
Thank you very much.
Thanks,
Always
Paul.
worth asking, Paul. You never know... Always worth writing a letter and putting out your case. As David said, it's only the cost of a stamp. Brian's in Dandenong South. Go for it, Brian.
Hey, morning. Thank you in advance too. I've got a block of land in the state, which is just a bush block. I've come to an agreement with an infrastructure company to put a tower on it.
Yes.
They made an offer and I negotiated them upwards and we agreed on it. And I got a message on the phone yesterday from the same person I spoke to saying, contract's in the mail, but at the lower amount, just change it.
Yes.
If I just change it, does that stand up?
Well, what you... the contract comes into existence, in theory, when there's a meeting of minds, Brian, right?
Mm-hmm.
It might be conditional upon a written agreement. Why don't you get him to send you an email directing you to change the value in the contract that comes?
Okay. Yep.
Right?
Would a phone text do?
Yes, of course. You've got to be able to. How do you keep phone texts?
Take a picture on your phone.
With another phone, presumably.
No, you can take a screen capture on your phone.
Okay.
Come on, David. Come on.
Oh.
Press the home button and the side button at the same time.
Rightio. Okay, I'll try. They still do that on Blackberries, do they? Who knows?
Yeah, I think they do. Although, is that because his question, I guess, is about keeping evidence, Brian's
Yeah,
question. Is that evidence, the photo of a text on your screen? I don't know.
Well, it's evidence that you received that message from that
okay.
number. So, Brian, that's what I would be doing and sending it back to him.
Okay.
All right.
No problems. All right, thanks for that.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Bye.
Claire is... sorry, we'll get to Claire in a moment. John in Grantville. Go for it, John.
G'day, Rap. David, some years ago I purchased a block of land in 1985.
Yes.
At the time there was no sewerage or made roads or anything like that.
Yep.
Over the years in 1996 they put the sewerage through.
Yes.
And charged me, I can't remember.
A connection fee. Yep.
Yeah. Well, no, it was one of those contributions where you had to pay because the whole area was sewered.
Yes.
There was some thousands of dollars that I paid for. And on my land, adjoining my land is an easement for a sewerage.
Yes.
When I paid the thing, they had all the plans and it showed the easement. And I actually knew that when I bought the land that the easement was on the other side of my block.
Yes.
3 years ago, I built a house on the block. And when the plumbers came to connect it, they found that the sewerage was actually on my land, not in the easement.
Yes.
They connected the house up and everything. Yep. Well, I went and then I went and queried this with the water board, and they said, "Oh, yeah, no, the easement is in fact on the other side of your boundary.
Yes.
But the sewerage does go down your line." And I said, "Well, how's that?"
John, they can.
That's what they said. They said, "We can put it wherever we like."
I was acting for an organisation that had a large parcel of land in Scoresby, and all of the houses on the other side of the fence had a easement down the back because we had a several 100-metre clear run. They simply put the sewer pipe on our side.
Right.
Even though there was an easement on the other side.
Right. And didn't tell you or didn't...
Well, they did tell us, and we did scream and we did rant and we did rave, and they did it anyway.
Right.
But this was probably 30 years ago.
Yeah, right. Oh, this is only a few years. Well,
no, the answer is they can pretty much put it where they like, but what would be really nice would be if they then went and formalised the easement, not so much from your perspective, because you know where it is, but from the point of view of everybody else. Someone who buys your property and says, "Oh, that's where the sewerage easement is, but the pipe's somewhere else."
Quite a few of you texting in, by the way, about regos. Someone saying VicRoads have a reminder service that you can register for, and it will send several reminders when the rego is due, and we'll even set up a reminder on your phone calendar. And quite a few of you saying, "I got let off for an out-of-roadworthy car when it was 4 days overdue." Definitely worth writing in. Someone else saying, "Read the rego contested. We did, and it succeeded." Something similar happened to you, Claire?
Hi, Ralph. Hi, David.
Claire.
I was picked up on the Tulla Freeway one Saturday night. I thought my rego was due in a few days' time, and I'd lost track of the date, clearly. And the policeman stopped me and, issued me with an infringement, said if you contact VicRoads, tell them, that you've been given this infringement, wait till... actually, he said, wait till it arrives in the mail. It never arrived. I got a second notice, which surprised me. And I contacted VicRoads and wrote my story about what had happened, and they waived it.
Oh, fantastic. So certainly worth a try.
Yeah, and he did. When I contacted VicRoads initially, they said that what the policeman had told me was not quite correct, but down the track, I clearly wrote a convincing letter, and no longer had a $795 fine to pay.
Congratulations.
There you go. That's it's worth it, isn't it? James is in Yarra Glen. James, what's your query?
Hi, David. Hi, Raph.
James.
Just a quick one, David. I'm in a wheelchair. I had an industrial accident or workplace accident about 30 years ago. I've got two boys. They're now adults that have got motorbike licences and ride trail bikes in the state forest. There's a system in Victoria called recreational registration.
Yes.
Now, I have a quad bike, an ATV. I cannot get recreational registration for a quad bike. So therefore, if I go riding with my boys or with my mates, I'm doing it illegally.
Unless you pay for it. Is there any other registration you can get for it?
No, there's none. I've written to VicRoads. I've written to the Minister, Luke Donnellan.
Yes.
And he says there's no flexibility. And I just want to know if there's any legal avenue that I could pursue to be able to ride with my sons.
I mean, Mr. Donnellan, the Minister's told you what the law is. There is no carve-out.
Yep.
The only option you've got then is you go to, I would be talking to Equal Opportunities about whether there's a possibility for the agitation for a change in the law. But the difficulty you've got will be that there will be so few people in your category.
Yeah.
When you look at the number of people who are in Victoria, your chances of changing the law, I would have said, were pretty slim.
And what about the other side of it, David? If I do go riding with my sons and I do get caught by the police,
yes,
I am breaking the law.
Yes, you are.
Yeah, okay.
So there's lots of laws we're not particularly convinced we should agree with, but they're still there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's like riding around on state forest roads, that sort of thing, where you need rego?
Yeah. Just the rec regs you can ride on, I think the particular numbered roads, that are not sealed, dirt roads and in state forests.
I'm sorry we don't have an answer for you, James.
Yeah, frustrating. Okay, thanks, guys.
Thank you so much. That's, there you go, situation I hadn't known about. Ryan's in Sunbury. Go for it, Ryan.
Hi, guys. I have building a new home, and we've got some new homes next to us. Now, the new homes next to us have put a fence up. We found out that the actual builder of those homes have erected that fence. It was my understanding that we were supposed to be provided a notice to fence. We never received any of that, and the fence has just gone up anyway. The fence is actually, a different construct and a different colour. I wanted to know whether there was any sort of issue we could take up with that.
Well, and is this from the building company that's doing the subdivision you bought into?
So the block next door to us is a subdivision.
Yes.
And we're building with a separate builder.
Okay.
On our own block.
Look, they've probably bought a house and land package that included fencing. They're not supposed to do fencing work on a common boundary without the consent of the owner or a court order. So your starting point needs to be, Ryan, first of all, have they asked you to contribute to the cost?
No.
Right, so one might come along and say there's an advantage even if you're not overly wrapped in whatever they've made it in. But you could simply go back and give them a notice to fence and say, I want you to pull down the existing fence because I don't like it, and I want you to put a different fence that we both share the cost of.
Right.
But that would require you to serve a notice to fence and go off to the magistrate's court.
Okay.
So it's I've got a fence that I don't particularly like, but it means I don't have to put one in.
Yeah, fair enough.
All right.
Buddy, thanks so much.
Thank you, Ryan.
Good luck, Ryan. Can you put your own? You can put your own fence up next to that one, can't you? If you don't like that particular fence, nothing's stopping you putting up a fence
inside your boundary.
Yeah,
provided that it complies with the planning and building regulations in your municipality. You can go for your life.
You can, can't you? Just if you don't like the look of it.
One of the issues you get from time to time is should we put a trellis on it? And and just, what do we then need to do? I've always advised clients to put up a frame inside your property and put the plantings on that. Anyway.
Could be the simple way forward. And Judy is in Wodonga. Go for it, Judy.
Oh, hello.
Judy.
I'm just ringing up about a body corporate. There's 2 units individually owned.
Yes.
There's no body corporate.
Yeah, well, can I say, Judy, there is a body corporate. It might not be active, But one came into existence when the plan was registered. Do you share a driveway?
We do.
Right, then if you share a driveway, you're required to have insurance. Now, there are organisations, and if you Google them, you can get Owners Corporation insurance for the common property quite inexpensively.
All right.
All right.
Well,
So, but there are most of the provisions in the Owners Corporation relating to in the Act that relate to 2-unit owners corporations are excluded. Right? I know that's very badly expressed. Lots of the rules that apply to large owners corporations do not apply to 2-unit ones.
all right.
All right. But you will have common property. Well, you do. You've got the shared driveway, and you're required by law to have insurance in respect to the common property. You don't need to insure the buildings. You can do that yourself, but you do need to have an insurance policy if someone was to fall on the driveway.
Oh, now, what if you have an individual insurance?
There are a number of insurance policies that you can get for owners corporations.
Yeah, right.
That fit on your policy and cover your liability as a member of the owners corporation.
Right. Now,
And the last time I looked, AMP had one, but I don't know who else has got one. So, but have a look, and it might well be that if you live in a strata development, you can get cover that will cover your liability to the owners corporation.
right.
Okay. Good luck, Judy. Good luck. David Whiting is going to stick around. Some breaking news for you. David Whiting is taking your calls. Let's have a word to Les, who is in Pascoe. Go for it, Les.
Hello, David.
Hello, Les.
My son's having a bit of a problem with a garage getting put on his fence line.
Yes.
There's been no discussion about it at all from the builders.
Yes.
They just come along and bang it down.
Have you spoken to council about whether they've got a permit to build that close to the boundary?
No, I don't know that.
That's where I would start. Is the fence come down, or has he built 3 inches
They've
inside his fence?
Put the foundations in.
Technically, they're not supposed to put any of the foundations on your property or on your son's property.
Is there any paperwork for that?
Well, you need to be satisfied, or your son needs to be satisfied, that the footings are not on his property.
Right.
It all depends on how difficult he wants to be and what he might choose to do in that location. Now, it's possible for them to use something called cantilevered footings, so the footings are entirely in their property. But in the normal course, when you build filled footings, your plan is to put the bricks along the middle of the line of the concrete.
Yes.
So is there any of the construction on your son's side of the fence?
No.
And if the answer is no, then the only question you would then ask is, do they have a permit from the council to put that kind of construction that close to the fence?
Right.
So I take it that they're built inside the fence line, but not by very much.
That's right.
Then, provided that they comply with the Building Act and regulations, and if they need a permit, they've got a permit, there is nothing you can do.
All right.
So start with the council.
Yes.
Okay?
Yeah, good. Thanks very much, David.
Thank you, Les.
Good luck. And Alex, you're in Northcote. Go for it.
Oh, good morning, David and Raph. Just a quick one at first. If Richmond were to make the finals and they went out in straight sets, could I sue them for negligence?
You can maybe breach of contract because they keep on
Probably
promising.
get your membership fee back, yes.
Yeah. Look, I've got a date with the judge at a magistrate's court coming up soon, and I received a ticket for dropping off parking. I pulled up next to a parked car in a street.
Yes.
And I received a ticket for doing that.
Yep.
That I was parked in a no standings, or double parked actually.
Yes.
Is that technically correct, that you can get a ticket for not getting out of your car?
Well, if you're allowed to be in the car and still park.
Yes.
Let's take this a step at a time. There's no standing signs?
No. In which case there were cars parked,
yes.
and I pulled up next to one of the cars that were parked.
But you've
and
got
the
a
car
ticket
in
that
front
says
of
you were
me-
double parked.
Yes.
And weren't you?
Well, actually, I think it was. No, it was double parked. Yes. Well, I'd stopped, but I hadn't got out. Is that technically parking anyway?
You don't need to stop. You don't need to get out to stop or to park.
Just stop.
Yes.
Because
Stop
I was waiting for a car to move so I could go in.
On that basis, my argument would be that you weren't parked. You still had the car in gear.
Yes, the motor was still running. I wasn't.
No,
I hadn't stopped the car. The motor was running. I'd stopped the car, but the motor was running, waiting for a car to, vacate its spot so I could go in.
Was this a specific car or just one of these rat bags will move soon?
No, someone was in the car, yes.
No.
So there was someone else moving their car and you were waiting for them to do that.
That's right.
My answer would be I was not parked. I was standing, but I was waiting for the vehicle in front to make room by moving out. So that would be my response. I'll look at the law between now and next Tuesday, and you can ring us back and tell us how you got on.
Okay, I might do that.
And Alex, does it say you're impeding traffic? Is that the fine for impeding traffic or for double parking?
I think it was for double parking. I don't know the form in front of me. I'm at work.
We'll find
but
out.
I had pulled up and I was waiting for a car to go.
Yeah, I get it. Okay, Alex, well, you tell us how you went, and David will take that as part of his homework. And we'll leave the final call to Hian in Eltham. Go for it.
Hi.
Hello.
I've got a question about a protection of works order that has been served by my neighbour.
Yes.
And he wants to build on the fence line, on his garage on the fence line, but he's doing a cut of about 3 meters deep.
Yes.
And the fence line's about 2 meters from our house, which I guess would mean that the footings would be less than that, maybe 1.5 meters from.
Well, you're entitled to insist that all of his footings be on his side of the property. As we spoke earlier to Les from Pascoe Vale, it is possible for him to have cantilevered footings, which would mean every skerrick of concrete would be his side of the boundary, not on yours. Your issue is protection works, and your issue would be how is he going to make sure that there's no slippage?
Right. Now, my general question is this something that I've got to take on as my responsibility to go and get technical advice and all this stuff, or is this something that the council will be looking after?
No, the council won't help you.
Okay.
Your starting point is the building surveyor who's given him the permit for the work.
Right.
The building surveyor will then, in the normal course, you should talk to the building surveyor about what he's going to do in terms of protection works.
Right.
Particularly if there is a 2 metre cut.
3 metre cut.
He's going to cut 3 metres into the soil.
That's right, yes.
So almost an underground garage.
It is an underground garage, yes.
Then the answer, protection works will be vital. If the building surveyor says that no protection works are required, then I would be going to council because you want to make sure that the work doesn't occur.
No. He's already served me with the protection of works
notice.
Order.
Yes.
Notice, but it doesn't have any technical information. It doesn't have any information other than the plan and say this is where the where the house is, this is where the garage is.
Then it's quite possible that the protection works notice doesn't comply with the building regulations.
Okay.
So I'd say you have a look at the building regulations. The website is legislation.vic.gov.au, and there are pro formas for what a protection notice needs to contain in the building regulations. And that ought to be there ought to be some formal indication so you can properly assess whether they're adequate or not. All right?
Right. Okay. All right. Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Pleasure.
Good luck, Jan. David Whiting, thank you so much.
Thanks, Raph. See you next week.
David Whiting here every Tuesday with some free legal advice.